Hey, Arcturus here. Today, we're looking at the Lion Knight's Castle. This is set 10305, comes with 4,514 pieces, and calls back to some of the earlier themes, such as Lego Castle, Lego Knights. We had the, Black Falcons, the Lions, the Dragon Knights. A lot of cool medieval themes, if you like them. Comes with 2 very large instruction booklets, 26 separate bags of pieces. And in the first booklet, you have some callbacks to what sets inspired this one. So, the King's Castle, Black Falcon Fortress, amongst others. It just has a nice little write-up on what sort of things you could find as inspiration for this. So, the last set was the Medieval Market, which I think was 2009. I'm sorry, the last set was 2016, which was the Nexo Knights, the Fortrex, which is not what I am familiar with. But the one before that was in 2009 and then 2004. So several older sets inspired this. The first one calls back all the way back to 1978. So, big inspiration for this was a lot of those old medieval themes, but they give it a new look, use some new techniques, new pieces, just to commemorate 90 years of play. Now, this one did come out in 2022 instead of 2024 when I built it. So really, we're at 92 years of play. But before we continue, if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more videos. One thing I wanted to point out, there's just a nice little detail in here is throughout the instructions you get these little text blocks, like here where we're building part of the kitchens. It says, are those turnips or carrots? If only they didn't share such a similar color. Using these white pieces here to make either carrots or turnips. So those are just peppered throughout the instructions, and I thought they were quite fun to read while building it. It was an excellent build. Really enjoyed putting it together, seeing the whole castle come together. The only real tedious bit was some of the crenulations on the fortress itself, but that's to be expected as they are quite small pieces and there's quite a lot of them to put on. In one step, you end up putting on 42 of these around the castle to give it a distinctive look, which we will show shortly. We'll start off by looking at the minifigures, but before we do, if you could like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. So we'll start off with some of the minifigures. So I've got them all out here in front, and I'll just slide them off to the side a little bit to give us a clear spot to look at them. So we'll start off with some of the minifigures here. So one of the first ones is an animal, just in the form of this cow, which you build, or ox, which you attach to this hay cart, which is just a nice simple little build. It has the usual hole there for the cart. Now, normally when you put these together, it recommends you use a black piece here instead of the brown, but I thought this looked better just to have, it's still a cow, but it's attached. You could do it either way, have it be the harness there. I just happened to use this piece instead. The cow horns are little tiny separate pieces. You do get at least one extra, I think, but they are quite small. But they do let you pose the horns however you want, so you can make them wonky, like so. You can also just put them so that they go in the same direction as well. And the head on this does move, though none of the other legs do. You also get a small little bird piece here, and of course the cart, which is rather cleverly built with some of these small flat pieces for the sides, which I think is quite nice. So set. We do have several minifigures to look at. So here we have just a female minifigure in dress with green tunic, also with belt there, white arms, which correspond to that white undershirt there, and then a white hat or veil. Also comes with a second-sided face of more smiling, and then more of a slight smile there, and with a goblet. Up next, we have one of the Rangers. Now, I believe all the backs of these are the same for this torso piece, and the legs are just unprinted. It would be nice with a set of this size and price to have leg printing on a few more of the minifigures than we got. One Forester, and we have our second Forester. This one with Banjo, very similar chest piece and similar back, also armed with a quiver. And then here is the back of that chest piece. On this, a child minifigure where has a child's toy here and the shorter legs, which I think are fine without leg printing on the shorter ones. It's just on the fully sized ones I would rather see the leg printing. So here we have one of the peasants. I will admit that there is a good variety for the non-uniformed minifigures here. Like here we have a peasant where you have the belt with a belt pouch this time. The shirt has a different cut. This one's wearing a basket to cover the back of his shirt, but we can easily just pop that off. And the brown legs go well with this figure, I think. And just, some nice... The torsos for the Black Falcon Knights in the set as are the same to each other. But generally speaking for the Knights, you wind up with the same shirt depending on which house they belong to, whether they're Lion Knights or if they are Black Falcon Knights. So here we have another child, very different from the previous one, and some back printing. This one actually does have arm printing. I think he is supposed to be the prince. So here's one of the Knights. As we on these, we do get some leg printing, which I think is nice. I think it's quite well done. A good bit of color on that blue and red with the little addition of the yellow and a little bit of, like a tassel hanging down over the ends of the tabard there, and then some chainmail for a chainmail surcoat there on the knees. And then for the back, we just have, a bit of chainmail peeking through on the top there, and then the red for the surcoat, as well as some slight yellow there to outline where the arms would be, so where that metal would show through under the surcoat there, or the tabard. I may get some of these words wrong. If I do, please feel free to correct me in the comments below. Be more than happy to correct my knowledge of medieval wear if somebody is willing to correct me there. So yet another peasant here. This one's more of a blacksmith or farmer type. I think farmer is probably more likely. But this one does have leg printing, which is nice. It's just some of that coat there going down on the legs. Actually, this one might be a cook now that I think about it. And then you get the back of the apron there. Nice, simple little minifigure. So another of the Knights with a helm here and arrow. Several varieties of helm in the set, which I think is quite nice. As many of the minifigures are similar, but they are supposed to be guards in a castle, so I think it's, in this case, a-okay that they have very similar minifigures, and you do get quite a few of them. I do wish on some of them we got a few more details, but here it is. Here's one with a different helmet. And again, the back is just very similar. So we're going to go through the Lion Knights first, then we will go on to the Black Falcon Knights. Again, another with that, in this case, holding a halberd. Here, which is just a pole piece with an axe head attached. Very simple weapon, but nicely done, I think. Here is a fancier knight with shield and a fancier helmet. So, as you can see, the shield is very well done. There's one on the front of the castle as well in that configuration. And then we do have a visored helm with large slits for seeing through, as opposed to another of the knights, which we'll get to in a second. And here is, just very quickly, one in standard armor, no helmet, just a solid armor piece. Armor piece still looks good. I think I actually remember those from when I was young. And we also have one mounted knight with a visored helm, although it is different from the previous one in that it only has eye slits with some indentations for where there would be more holes that they don't actually put onto the figure, which I think is okay. I don't think the piece would hold up very well if those holes went all the way through. And it also does have a red plume here as opposed to the blue plume on the other. You could swap them, of course, if you so desired. That's the one with the blue plume. I forgot to point that out when we were looking at it. Here he also has a halberd and shield. This is the other form of the shield that is on the castle on the front, which we will see shortly. Then we also have a horse with barding. The bridle's printed onto the face of the horse there, and then the barding is just a very similar to what I remember from similar type sets with horses, where you would have this sort of large plastic piece that just slides into that socket there and provides the horse armor or barding, as it were. The horse legs, I did find the horse legs in the set were quite stiff. Maybe that's just a particular to my set from storage or something, but I did find them quite stiff. So here we have the queen or king, not entirely sure which, with the white plume and gold visor. I would probably say that's a queen here, and then also a sword and a different shield with the blue and red and a golden lion. This one also comes with a cape. I should show you that before I take it off. So there's the cape, very bright, very standard Lego cape. Goes on in the typical way where you just line up the two pieces. I do want to show this figure. So this one has a different chest and, of course, a fancier looking belt, and then fancier looking legs as well, with white for the feet and up to mid leg, and then a bit of banding, which in this case does not look like chainmail, but it looks like gold brocade. And the chest is much more, the torso of this piece is much fancier with gold instead of silver, and much more detail there on the torso, where you have all these little pieces of the belt as opposed to just a very simple belt. And that continues as well onto the back there. I just wanted to point that out. And of course, they print that very nicely, and then you put armor over it, which does not show any of it. You could, of course, leave the armor off. However, I will leave the armor on, as it's a knight. Knights need their armor, I think. I'll, of course, put the helmet back on and return the shield. So very nice set of lion knights there. Next up, we have some of the Black Falcon Knights who come with silver pants or gray pants, though they are a little shiny. This one has a banner and sword and a similar type helmet. I believe that's a lobster tail helm, similar to some of the Lion Knights, though their helms are in black. And then we have another Black Falcon Knight, this one wearing a harness for the backpack, which does look a little bit like armor there on the front, but it is just part of the harness for the backpack, which you do assemble. So you've got a little bedroll, looks like a box, and then the standard knapsack portion, banner attached, as well as a bucket and a little walking stick for him to get places. These are very similar. These knights are very similar to the Lion Knights, just more of a color difference. So for comparison's sake, here we have two. As you can see, the legs are slightly different, although generally similar. They both, on the right there, have a piece of leather hanging down from their belt. They both have chainmail there, right about the knee level, although on the right you have a wavy fringe as opposed to the solid fringe here. Apologize, my light for this is not quite the best, but the chest is essentially just recolors of each other with a different symbol, so I guess not very similar at all. And then the black versus silver helm there. For our final Black Falcon Knight, very similar to the Queen, a very striking shield with that black and silver there, a black helmet with a black flame, or there's a proper word for those and I do not remember it, as well as a very nice looking black sword there. It's a very nice sword that is black as well. And then the knight's torso is very similar. He has a bucket helm, but underneath you have a mustachioed figure. Although I do like that bucket helm look. So I will be leaving that on. And then we also have here another horse, white horse this time, or beige. Again, with the bridles attached, although the bridles in this case are larger and more leathery than on the Lion Knights. And then we also have the barding for the horse here as well. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the selection of minifigures. There is one more. I'm not as pleased with this one. I think it's very basic for this set. Unfortunately, it's also what came in the Magisto's Magical Workshop, unless I am completely misremembering that box, and I don't believe I am. Just a very simple blue figure. No chest printing, no back printing. Just a wizard with a wizard beard piece, very familiar. Might be very similar to Dumbledore's, although I don't believe that's the case. I think it might actually be a separate piece. And then a blue wizard's hat. Very simple there. And then you do assemble him a green topped staff there, but just a very bland figure. I would have expected some detail there on the robes, but there isn't any, which I find fairly disappointing, I have to say. Of all the figures in the set, it is the most disappointing. And for a $400 set, I think a little bit more detail could have gone into that one figure, and then it would have worked very well for the Magisto's Magical. Those are the figures, so we'll move on to the castle now. You can I've actually been looking at part of it this entire time. So here we have the front with some water and a ramp up into the castle drawbridge, and then we come into the control for the portcullis, which you do just raise by rolling this, and then let it go by, and on mine it does seem to catch about halfway down. I'm not entirely sure why, but if you hold it long enough, it does go, or you can just roll it down yourself. And that could just be on mine. I may have, not run that chain through entirely correctly. A large tree here on the back side, complete with a beehive there, a market stall here, and then a more living section there, and then a little bit of back here coming up into a very slight back door, which is actually controlled by a small knob here. And I'll show you that in more detail once we start looking at the interior. We also do have a water wheel here, though it is covered by this wall section here. This side also opens. And one thing I do want to point out is this balcony here actually turns into a piece of the wall and actually slides in and out under this tower, which is hidden by the ladder. But I just thought it was very clever how they got this wall section piece to move, so that either closed, you have a nice balcony, or if you have it open, it actually does form a piece of the battlement. I just thought it was very clever. I was quite impressed putting that on. One other piece I wanted to point out is you do have this hairpiece here for the queen, which has a little socket for a tiny crown to socket in. So if you did want your queen to walk around without a helmet, but instead have a crown, it is possible and is included. I just forgot to include this when we were looking at the minifigures out there. All right, so here we have the full front of the castle. You can see kind of how the plates form the land and then the water for the moat there. You can also see that there is some room under the moat here for sliding other pieces in, and we'll go around and look at the outside here. So here we have underneath the drawbridge. I hope you can see it once I raise the bridge. Yes, you can. So there's a little alcove there where you could hide away a minifigure, but currently it just has a toad hanging out in there. And then we have the tree with the beehive, and then we have here the back entrance to the castle with a little, let's slide this back a little bit, where you have a little tiny dock attached to the moat, or perhaps some other water of the river, which if we bring forward, you can see how it would connect there. And I'll rotate this again so you can see how it connects right there. But you do also have this extra door here, which is controlled by a knob around the back, and it can go up or down as you so please. As I have a little torch here, some arrow slits around the castle itself, the knob for the drawbridge, and the knob for that side door there. We also have over some of the windows, where they're actual windows, like here, these nice tilted tile pieces that make just a very nice arch for the overhang there. And we have a little tiny tree. Some of these trees are just these little tiny ones, as well as a brown frog, as this is actually supposed to be the lavatory. And then this is, of course, an assembled tree. You could, I think, attach a minifigure hanging from one of these branches here as well. Now, on this side of the castle, before we go around continuing the outside, there is actually a secret room here, which just rolls or rotates cover that way, as well as a sliding wall there where you can actually access some of the one of the cells here. See, there's a secret escape hatch here. So here we have a nice interior. You can see that door there, which just rolls up and down using some of these to help guide the movement of the door. And it just also slides right in next to that bathroom right here on that upper level. Also in that bathroom, you have a little white canister piece, as well, very similar to these, just in white, as well as a branch with a leaf on it. I'm sure you can all figure out what that is for. You, of course, have some pennants here on top of the building. Beneath here on the bottom, we have a little treasure chest and some castle riches here. We also have, or perhaps not castle riches, but the riches of people who are imprisoned in the bottom of the dungeons. We also have some, what I believe are supposed to be torches. They're actually just the wand pieces from Harry Potter, which I think is a great reuse of parts. We have an additional helmet for the visored helm and the lobster tail. 2 additional shields here and a spear and some pennants there on top, as well as a ladder to go up and down. They did put thought into how a figure might actually move around in this set, I think, or it seems pretty well thought out. But at least it seems that they did, so I quite like that. And you can also see the inside of the arrow slits here. You do cover one of them with this piece. So up on the top, we have an actual armory where you have swords and a mace, which is just made by one of those gear pieces to a wooden stick. I think it's great. Another helm there in the back, as well as 2 quarrels for the crossbow here, and a ladder going from this upper floor down to here. Up top, you also have 2 additional shields. Well, actually, 4 additional shields, I should say. So we'll pop that out. So you have 2 round shields that you could use for other figures, as well as, if I can get them out, 2 additional shields. So here we have crossed axes on a gold and black there, gold and yellow in terms of print, and then we have blue, red, and white here. Very difficult to get my fingers around on those, and those just socket up there in the back above these 2 other types of shields. And I hope I can get these back in. Yes. And on the left here on this top level, we have an archer quiver and bow. And so we do also have the chains for the upper portion and lower portion running through this section. So here we have the portcullis, which as it comes up covers that armory section there, and would also be blocked by that piece, but does open up down here. And if we lower the drawbridge, which I think you can see some of those chains running through there moving. And that lowers and opens and lowers the drawbridge. With the portcullis raised, you can see this lever here, just barely. You just press that and then away it goes. Slam shut. You do also may notice there is this little doorway here that is actually for one of the horses. It's a miniature stable. There's not a ton of room on this, so they do make the most of what they have available. Down on the bottom, we have the 2 dungeons. This one does have a skeleton in it. Just the standard skeleton. And then this exit is actually the secret exit for the castle, or the secret passage, as it were. Here, if you remember back to the beginning where you could see that green frog underneath the moat, that actually ties into this section here. It's all open underneath. And some parts of this castle do actually detach from each other, which is quite convenient for storage. They just attach by these grabby pieces to one of these bar, like 2x2 bricks, but with the room for a grabby section to grab it, which is a lot of useless nouns. One of these pieces. But it does close up to quite a small thing. The front attaches in much a similar way. You can see kind of how it's built. It uses a wooden bar here to hold both sides of this together to give that nice curved look, as well as utilizing one of these vines here to cover that seam, which I think is quite clever. It makes use of some of the arched pieces to really reduce the number of pieces you would need to build that, and as well as the weight. And then it just attaches by one of these and one of these to the pieces in the front there. So going from this cavern system, we actually come into a secret room. I'm going to rotate this way. I think this will work. So going from that cavern system, we actually do come into this secret room here, which is a secret little forester hideaway, or an escape for the queen that's maybe been taken over by the foresters. It does have a secret entrance underneath the market stall, although to open it completely, you would need to remove the market stall, which is quite easy as it's just held on by 2 studs. The market stall is, makes use of a cherry piece to give a little bit of more color than just the green pieces, and a baguette piece that actually just holds in there. They're all attached. None of them you have to worry about falling off, which is quite nice, as sometimes they do. Then we have a little stair going up to a lookout point, and then we also have the fully openable secret passage, tunnel, cave system. Not sure on the proper terminology for it. Again, this section does open up. We'll look at that in a second. We do have some nice little decorative pieces that look great. They add just a nice bit of color, especially if you're using this as a display piece. They do look quite good from far away. A few more pennants. A much nicer pennant there on the top. And there's another one on the other piece, but I'll have to adjust the camera to show that. It does make use of some very interesting building techniques using those bending the 2 movable blocks that go together to build this wall at this angle, which I think is quite clever. And then, of course, there's also on the outside a water wheel. This one will be a little difficult to show, but one thing I do want to point out is this little secret section here. There's actually a golden frog that hides under here. So this, what is normally a balcony and turns into a part of the battlements, actually just hides that little golden frog, and then it's either shown, or obviously you don't see it this way, and you can't see it this way, so that's a nice little Easter egg. Ladders to get up to this lookout point here. A bell tower here. No actual bells in it, but does do quite nicely. And then we do have this pennant here as well as that very large pennant there on the other side in gold and blue, and then the other in blue and gold, both outlined in red. They're very nice. They're cloth pieces. They come in the same paper box as the cape does for the queen. So on the inside of this, we actually have kitchens, a small mill. Oops. We have kitchens, a small mill, a storeroom section with a bird's nest up here. I'll try to show that in a second. And then we have a dining room, the bedroom for the queen, with its own little door there. Just simple, made out of a couple pieces to connect. The white walls for this actually make it stand out very nicely from the gray. I think that's quite great. That would connect together. Yep, that would make sense. Where the queen's room, I'm not entirely sure. This is, I think, supposed to be a model of another castle, a reference to one of their older sets. Then below, we have a nice fireplace with a harpsichord, as opposed to a piano, although it does greatly resemble a grand piano. There are, of course, stairs in the back. This ties into the dining room, which you can see with actual windows here in the back, as well as 3 different shields in there. One with fleur-de-lis, one with a crown, and one with 2 stripes of green. You can also see, as I tilt this, we have a little bird's nest up here for eggs, or perhaps just a nesting pigeon. We also have down here, as we move the water wheel, we do move this mill. So it does resemble properly how one of these would work, but it is a grain mill, a very basic grain mill. As you can see from where you would load the hopper and it would pour the grain in, and then at the bottom you would get actual milled grain for making bread. In here we have a kitchen. In the very back there, it's unfortunately very difficult to see. We actually have a fountain. Let me see if I can't make this a little better of a view. Yes, there we go. We actually do have a fountain there in the back, as well as some pots and pans in this baking area. And then underneath here, we actually have a slight grate for where that water is supposed to be coming from. Let's see. And I think that is all of the secret areas, or all of the areas of the castle. So I did pick this set up over Black Friday. This is one of the ones I got on sale. It was a very nice 25% off, which was excellent. I may not have picked it up otherwise without that sale. It is quite a large set and over 4,000 pieces. It was quite fun to put together. I really enjoyed it. Comes with plenty of minifigures. If you really like the castle theme, if maybe you're nostalgic for the castles or you really like the medieval theme, I think it's a great set, although it is on the pricey side. But maybe they'll run that 25% off again. I hope they do. I think that'd be great for people to be able to pick up at that reduced price. It does make me wish that that was the base price. It would have been a lot easier of a decision to pick this up. But it has been on my wish list for a while, so I'm very glad I got it. I had a great time building it. Some bits were a little tedious, but like the thatched roof was a little tedious. All of these are individual 2x2. I guess not 2x2, but they connect on 2x1s. Yeah, 2x1s. They're on the back. Well, I think they might connect by 2x4s. Anyway, they were very tedious to put together. I will admit, these roofs were doing these little decorative details here. Was also a little tedious because the parts are quite small, for me at least. And there's quite a lot of them to put on, both on this tower and on these. But I think it makes a very striking set. Well, that's my review of the Lion Knight's Castle. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.